2022 was a pretty good year for movies. Actually, it was a pretty great year. We got exciting stuff from veterans, some standouts from the voices becoming the most prevalent of our time, and some incredible work from newcomers. Horror had one of the most memorable years in a long time, and in a lot of ways, it felt like the blockbuster had finally returned in a way that felt fresh and exciting. In fact, it was so good that I would argue that my top 30 movies were all movies that I thoroughly enjoyed and would recommend to people, but for the sake of this video and the fact that that would be more than half of my entire list, I managed to narrow it down to 10. My 10 favorite movies of this year have been chosen because obviously I think they are good, but also because they speak to who I was this year. Think of this lineup as less of a definitive ranking of quality and more of the 10 movies that I had the most fun watching, spent the most time thinking about, and that I most deeply related to. This list is, in many ways, a time capsule of my year. What about these movies connected to my lived experience that made me latch onto it so much? Let's talk about it. This year, I watched 54 releases from this year. This entire video will be giving synopses of the movies, but will otherwise remain spoiler-free. So without further ado, let's get started.
Jordan and...
What's up? I'm Greg.
Sup, player? I'm Sophie.
Oh. Whoa. You're Sophie.
Okay, hear me out. I know that someone out there is going to immediately turn this video off because of this, and that's fine. This is a silly entry, and putting it in the top 10 may be a misstep, especially since this and the number 11 spot are so close together that I consider changing them up so many times. But in the end, Bodies is just a fun-ass time that I loved rewatching and showing to friends, and this is my list, after all. Bodies is a sort of thriller comedy whodunit about a group of friends in their 20s whose hurricane party turns dangerous when their murder mystery game goes terribly wrong. It's a satire on Gen Z, but it doesn't make me feel horrible for being Gen Z, if that makes sense. Like, yes, I can sit there and laugh about how horrible and dumb these characters are, but there's also an underlying sense of understanding towards them. It also has some of the most iconic line delivery of the year thanks to a hilarious performance by Rachel Sennett. I know that a lot of people were mixed about the ending, but personally I thought it worked, it was really funny, and the movie as a whole still holds up on a rewatch. I definitely recommend. It is available for rent or to buy wherever you get your movies VOD.
Of my murder. Travel details to come. Please forward any dietary restrictions. Love and all my kisses, Miles.
Speaking of movies that were a fun time, Glass Onion is the highly anticipated next installment of the Knives Out franchise, where we see Benoit Blanc at it once again when he is invited to billionaire Miles Braun's murder mystery party on his private Greek island. There seems to be a running theme here, but I promise the rest of the list is not like this. I really enjoyed Glass Onion almost to the same level that I enjoyed Knives Out. I think certain elements of the first were slightly more enjoyable to me, but I enjoyed the mystery of this movie a lot more. The ensemble cast was outstanding, with specific love to Daniel Craig and Janelle Monáe, who just absolutely killed it with their performances. This is news to no one, but Janelle Monáe's character is just, you have to see it to believe it. Glass Onion is streaming on Netflix now.
What about you?
Sorry?
If you could go anywhere in the whole world, where would you go?
I always wanted to be part of something bigger.
I must live my truth as a Babylon enthusiast, and when this movie is heralded as a masterpiece in 10 years, you will all see. Babylon is a 3-hour epic that chronicles the rise and fall of a handful of people in Hollywood during the transition from silent film to the talkies. Now, listen, this movie is not for everyone for 3 major reasons, all of which are understandable. First, the runtime. Second, not everyone is into movies about Hollywood. And third, it's fucking gross, to put it simply. But if you're okay with all of these things, you will be treated to a movie that gives it 10,000% all of the time. Damien Chazelle directs this movie like it is the last movie ever made. Every actor is committing to the bit, specifically Margot Robbie. There are 2 long sequences that I can think of that were simultaneously stressful and completely electric, and one sequence towards the end that was downright terrifying. This is what I imagined laughing maniacally while sobbing hysterically at the same time would be as a movie. This movie is still in theaters, so please go catch it if you have the chance or if this interests you at all.
I don't know. Why don't you come inside and we'll call these idiots.
I watch a lot of horror movies. I've been grossed out, I've been disturbed, I've been scared a lot. But certain sequences in Barbarian genuinely made me feel like I was going to pass out. Barbarian follows a woman named Tess who arrives at her Airbnb and finds that there is another man already staying there. After they find out that the house has been double booked, Tess decides to stay with the strange man and absolute chaos unfolds. On rewatches, I've been able to appreciate the comedy of Barbarian a lot more than the horror elements, as well as a lot of the really great filmmaking, but that first time, I was peeing my pants. I do see the criticism of the last act of the movie losing steam, but that hard cut in the middle of the movie, you know the one if you've seen it, is one of the funniest, shocking things I've seen in a horror movie in a long time, that to me, that makes it worth it. There are a lot of bold choices made in this movie that I really admire, and I can't wait to see what Zach Cregger does next. Barbarian is available to stream on HBO Max.
It's in a cloud. It's in a cloud.
OJ! It's in the cloud!
I mean, he did it. Nope is a technical monster of a movie with some of the most incredible sound design I've seen in a long time. Say what you will about Nope, I know a lot of people were mixed on it, but Jordan Peele knows exactly how to convey his vision to the screen. Nope is the story of two siblings who are attempting to capture evidence of the extraterrestrial after witnessing what they believe to be an alien spaceship. Nope is not technically a horror movie, but there are a couple of sequences so horrifying that they completely turned my stomach. I mean, if you know, you know. The cast is outstanding, but my favorite performance was Keke Palmer, who is so naturally charismatic and electric in this role. This movie is larger than life, and one of my biggest disappointments was not being able to catch this one on the big screen, so please see this in the biggest possible way you can if you haven't yet. Nope is currently streaming on Peacock.
좋겠습니다.
산에 가서 안 오면 걱정했어요. 마침내 죽을까봐.
마침내.
Park Chan-wook's latest was always high on my anticipated list for this year. The two films of his that I had seen previously left a really deep mark on me, so I knew that I had to catch Decision to Leave in some way. And man, after so much turmoil trying to find this movie, I'm so glad that I finally got to see it. Decision to Leave tells the story of Detective Hae-jun, who is tasked with investigating the death of a man who fell from a mountain. The victim's wife, So-rae, soon becomes the object of Hae-jun's affections, while she also becomes the case's prime suspect. This movie is an absolute visual delight, with some of my favorite filmmaking of the year. Certain sequences left me feeling breathless. Each frame is so rich with detail, like the wallpaper, you know. And I also fell in love with Tang Wei's performance as So-rae. I mean, she really steals every scene that she's in. And the ending. Again, no spoilers, but probably the most breathtaking ending of the year. Decision to Leave is currently streaming on Mubi.
But you didn't say anything to me. You didn't do anything to me.
Well, that's what I was thinking, like.
I just don't like you no more.
As someone who often thinks that everyone hates me at any given moment, this movie was my absolute worst nightmare. Banshees focuses on two lifelong friends whose relationship is suddenly in danger when one declares the friendship is over. Something that surprised me about this movie was just how deeply sad it was. It's funny, yes, there are hilarious sequences, but the core of this movie has this kind of lonely melancholy that I was surprisingly affected by. Again, this is one of the movies this year where every single actor is giving it their all, but I would be crazy to not specifically call out Colin Farrell for his honest and raw performance in the lead role. When we talk about actors disappearing into their roles, this has to be one of the best instances of that. The Banshees of Inisherin is available to stream on HBO Max.
You cannot start without me. See, I start the clock. Now, my left hand, it shapes, but my right hand, the second hand, marks time and moves it forward.
Cate Blanchett's second best role this year after the monkey in Pinocchio. All jokes aside, Tar is an absolutely breathtaking movie documenting the fall of Lydia Tarr, one of the most decorated and respected composer-conductors. This movie is so tense that it made my stomach hurt for nearly the entire runtime, which is a very long time if you know. I'd like to clarify that this is also a good thing. The world built around this character is so fully fleshed out and realized thanks to the airtight screenplay and the brilliant performance from Cate Blanchett that I was not surprised at all that I heard people were convinced that Lydia Tarr was a real person. The way that information is given to the audience is so satisfying and, for lack of a better term, smart, so that by the time the movie is nearing its climax, we have gathered all the pieces of the puzzle, and it's just a really great feeling. As of the making of this video, Tar is available for rent or to buy on VOD, but it may make its streaming debut on Peacock soon. So normally I would do honorable mentions before the first spot in the ranking, but we have a dilemma here. These next two movies I consider so close together that they may as well be a tie. They are both, in my mind, masterpieces. I did manage to settle on a final order, but just know that they are so completely close. That being said, here are some honorable mentions that I really liked this year that I wish I could have put on this list. Bones and All is gorgeous and features some of my favorite performances of the year. Pearl is my favorite performance of the year. Mia Goth is going to go so far. Top Gun Maverick was a delightful surprise. I had absolutely no expectations going in, but I ended up having a blast. And finally, The Northman was a movie so epic and grand from a director that I really admire that I'll probably be revisiting in the near future.
尽管离家让我心碎，我想告诉你，如果有来生，我还是会选择和你一起报税，开心一点。
How do you even begin to talk about this movie? Everything Everywhere is the story of Evelyn Wong, a middle-aged Chinese immigrant who is suddenly thrust into a multiverse where only she can stop the evil force Jobu Tupaki. It's funny, it's sad, it's reflective, it's quite literally everything everywhere. This is my most rewatched movie of the year, and each time I connected to something different. I found myself weeping, I mean just straight up sobbing over its themes of loneliness, queerness, depression, mother-daughter relationships, you name it. There's a reason why so many people have connected to this movie. It's inspiring and uplifting that everyone who loves this movie has found their own way to connect with it. This movie would not be nearly as impactful without the heartfelt performances from Stephanie Hsu, Ki Kwan, and the heart of the movie, Michelle Yeoh. All three of these actors have to deliver performances that are funny but also heartwarming and devastating at times, and it all came together magically. This is pure movie magic. Everything Everywhere All at Once is currently streaming on Showtime.
I think it's nice that we share the same sky.
What do you mean?
Well, like, sometimes at playtime, I look up to the sky, and if I can see the sun, then I think about the fact that we can both see the sun, so even though we're not actually in the same place and we're not actually together, we kind of are in a way, you know?
How do we know who our parents are? How do we know who our children are? How do we find these answers when all we can do is reach back in time through fuzzy memories, grasping at anything solid enough to take hold? After Sun, director Charlotte Wells' debut film attempts to answer these questions in a way that is so raw, earnest, sincere, but also just so deeply melancholy. The movie is about 11-year-old Sophie and her dad Callum on vacation, while at the same time, a 30-year-old Sophie reflects on the old video footage from this vacation, trying to piece together who her father was. Anyone who knows me knows why this movie left such a deep emotional scar within me, and maybe that reason is why After Sun came out on top after I loved Everything Everywhere so deeply for so long. Or maybe it's because I found myself thinking, writing, crying about After Sun ever since I saw it. Maybe it's because Frankie Corio and Paul Mescal give some of the most heartbreaking performances I've seen in a long time. Maybe it's because of those last 15 minutes that have been haunting me and have crept up on me when I least expect it. Everything about After Sun, from the script to the performances to the visuals, is absolutely gorgeous, and this movie could not have come at a more relevant time in my life. This movie is for sure going to become one of the core ones of my life, one of the films that I carry with me in my heart wherever I go. After Sun is currently available to rent or to buy, but will soon be streaming on Mubi. So there you have it, my 10 favorite movies of this past year. Tell me in the comments what your favorite movie of the year was. I'm very curious actually. This was a great year, and I'm sure that everyone has a mixed bag of what their favorites were. And that's gonna do it for me. I'll see you all later.